If you're skinny fat right now, you're looking like me over here, and you want to look like this, then this is exactly how you're going to do it. This is a step-by-step guide of exactly what you should do when it comes to training, diet, everything you need to know about going from skinny fat to jacked and lean. Let's fucking go. If it would fucking load every time it does this, man. Come on. Okay, here we go. Come on. Okay, I don't know. So, what actually is skinny fat? I'm sure you guys are asking, right? I mean, it's in the fucking name, so you know what it is. It's when you have too much body fat, but not enough muscle, so you just kind of look like fucking skinny fat, dude. Like, look at this fucking... I mean, I have a little bit of muscle here. Like, I had been working out for a little bit here. Well, technically, a couple years, actually, believe it or not. But it's a long story. That's not the point. But I clearly am pretty high body fat percentage. Thankfully, I don't store much of my fat on my arms. So, like, you can see my delts are popping. Like, my arms actually look decent here. But my fucking belly is fat. My legs are pretty fat. Like, I'm pretty skinny fat there. There's worse pictures, but, like, I mean, look at this fucking guy. I mean, his arms look good too, because he's fucking, this is obviously edited, but anyways, like, being skinny fat usually is characterized by having, like, a gut, a little belly, and just, like, small arms, which is, like, the worst build to have, because you look like shit in clothes, you look skinny, and then when you take your shirt off, you just look fat and skinny at the same time. Like, it's quite literally the worst place you can possibly be, and I can tell you from experience, it fucking sucks, because it looks like you don't work out, like, either way. At least when you're, like, you have a little bit of muscle and you're lean, you look small with clothes on, but when you take your shirt off, you look fucking sick, and then when you're, like, you're kind of bulked up, but you have a good amount of muscle, but you're also pretty fluffy. Like, you look pretty sick with clothes on, and then when you take your shirt off, you're like fucking fat. But anyways, our goal is to get you to looking fucking jacked and lean, so you can look good both ways. So let's talk about how to fucking do that, why don't we? So let's talk about why you might actually be skinny fat. So what's actually what's going on here, huh? So first of all, you're likely just you're fat and you haven't been lifting long enough. Pretty put simply, that's the TLDR. You haven't been lifting for long enough, or you've been lifting like an idiot and you're fat for whatever reason. Now, some reasons for this more specifically, I'm going to get into all this stuff later on, don't worry, in more depth. But, sorry, excuse me, I don't know what's going on. But, with your diet, this is usually the main reason why people are skinny fat a lot of the time. They'll be going to the gym consistently, like maybe every day even. Like, usually their training kind of sucks, but also more times than not, it's just that their diet is horrible. Maybe they go to the gym very consistently and they do all that stuff pretty right, but then when it comes to fucking food, they have no consistency. They eat whatever they want. Maybe they eat 4,000 calories some days and fucking 1,000 other days. So they just feel like shit all the time. Maybe you're stuck in that binging, restricting cycle, which, speaking from experience, is a one-way ticket to not making progress, because you get yourself fat for one, and you feel awful all the time because you feel awful when you binge. Your gut is fucked up. Everything's fucked up. But then to make up for that, you restrict yourself so that you don't get too fat, and then you feel like shit because you're restricting yourself. You have no energy, so your workouts are dog shit either way. So it's just a horrible place to be for a million other reasons, and I'll make a separate video about that, but I'm sure I'll come back to that later. But it could be maybe you're not eating enough protein, maybe you're not getting enough calories in general, maybe you're just eating a bunch of fucking goy slop bullshit and you just feel horrible, so your workouts are shit. And then maybe inside the gym, you're just not training hard enough because you have to train at least somewhat close to failure to grow muscle. Maybe your technique is awful. Maybe you just don't have any structure to your workouts at all. There's no consistency. You're fucking changing things up all the time, just kind of winging it, doing whatever you want. So the main thing here is just consistency, and a lack thereof is probably the reason why you're skinny fat. And like I said, we're gonna deep dive into all these things. So don't you worry. Don't you worry, child. Okay, I don't know. Shut up. Holy fuck. Anyways, step one. So we've established that we're skinny fat. We've established maybe why that is. Now what the fuck do we do, huh? First step, get lean. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I'm gonna die on this hill. You should not be bulking. You shouldn't be doing any bullshit like that. If you are skinny fat, i.e. you have too much body fat right now and not enough muscle, get lean first and then worry about building muscle. Oh, and by the way, you can fucking build muscle while you get lean, especially when you're a beginner and you're not in a crazy aggressive deficit. You can absolutely build muscle while getting lean, and that's exactly what you should do. Now, how do you actually do this? Or actually, let's talk about why you should do this. So, I can make a separate video about this. I can talk about why you shouldn't bulk, which I think I talk about in the next slide. So for now, I'm going to talk about this. But the reason you should do this is because, one, you have too much fat like we've established. So it doesn't make any sense to put on more fat just to fucking, in hopes of putting on more muscle, when you're going to have to cut down anyways if you want to actually reveal that muscle, right? So why not reveal what little muscle might be there, because you probably have a little bit underneath if you've been working out for some time. Why not reveal that now by getting leaner and actually seeing some of that definition and being more insulin sensitive, which means insulin basically controls your blood sugar. So when you eat carbs, that gets broken down into sugars, and those sugars enter your bloodstream. And in order to, okay, hold on. All right, forgive me. I got cut off. The fucking RSAs were knocking on my door. They came in. I'm about to go home for spring break. I should have been home by now, but fucking recording videos, doing all that shit. Anyways, so I was talking about insulin. So basically, insulin controls your blood sugar. When your blood sugar is elevated, insulin is secreted by your pancreas, and this tells your cells to suck up that glucose, that sugar, and take it out of your bloodstream to therefore lower your blood sugar, basically. And you want high insulin sensitivity because you want these carbs, these sugars, to go into your muscles to fill up your glycogen stores and to kind of partition your nutrients better overall. I think I can make a separate video about this, and I'm probably gonna make a TikTok about this because I kind of want to rant about this. I think people are kind of blowing this out of proportion and kind of they don't actually understand what it is, and they're kind of I'm trying not to confuse it. That's why I'm not explaining it in depth. But people seem to think that it's like this new thing. They're kind of just throwing around this buzzword, insulin sensitivity, when they don't actually know what it is. That's a whole nother story. But it is important, and the main idea that I was trying to get at here is that by getting leaner, that's one of the easiest things you can do in order to become more insulin sensitive. And if you didn't know, insulin resistance, which is when your cells stop responding to insulin, is what diabetes is. Why the fuck did I say it like that? Is what diabetes is. So we don't want that, obviously. So get lean so you can be more insulin sensitive. You can be in a better position to theoretically put on more muscle and just be healthier overall and actually like the way you look a little bit more. Be more defined. Fucking everything. Like, it just makes more sense. If you have to get lean eventually, why not do it at the start and then build from there and stay lean the whole time, because you don't need to bulk and get fat in order to build muscle. So why not cut down first, get lean, be in a healthy body fat percentage in a good place, and then build from there. I think that is what you should do. Sorry, that fucking really threw me off. And now I'm talking like an idiot. But okay, so how are you gonna get lean? Go watch my other videos on this, but you're gonna find your maintenance calories. Go to TDE calculator online, search it up on Google. There's a couple different options. I think the main one is this.net, tdecalculator.net. I think that's the one I use. It's just going to give you an estimation of what your total daily energy expenditure is, which basically just means how many calories are you burning every single day. And therefore, to find your maintenance calories would be replacing what you burn. The problem with these calculators is that it's just an estimate, like I said. Your TDE is going to fluctuate every single day by at least a couple calories. Usually it can vary substantially, especially if your activity levels are different, obviously. But it's very complex. Like, if your activity is higher, your body can downregulate some other processes, like it'll burn less calories when you're sleeping, etc. Very complex stuff. But the main idea is find your estimation, try that out for like a week, eat that amount every single day for at least a week, and then track your weight every single day and see how it moves. It's going to fluctuate a little bit probably, but see how the trends are. The longer you can actually do this for, the better, because the better data you're going to have. Like I said, there's going to be fluctuations, so it can be hard to draw conclusions from, but at least try it for a week. And then if you find that you're losing weight, your scale weight is trending down, then you are in a deficit, and then you can either stay there, if like that's your goal, to be in a deficit, which we're going to get there in a second. But if you're trying to find your maintenance, then you would increase that amount by, let's say, 100, 200 calories, depending on how fast you're losing weight. And then hopefully you try that for a week, and then hopefully your weight stabilizes, then you found your maintenance. And then vice versa, if you were gaining weight and you were eating too much, then you would just drop down the calories. You found your maintenance. Now, I think subtracting about 200 to 500, depending on how much fat you have to lose, how fat you actually are initially, is the best play here. I definitely wouldn't really recommend doing an aggressive diet. You could do this if you are an experienced dieter, but if you're skinny fat and you're kind of starting out with everything, you're probably not experienced. So I probably wouldn't recommend that. Aggressive diet would be like anything more than 500, like closer to like 1,000. That would be like theoretically losing like 2 pounds a week, which is a lot. That can be very complex. I can make a separate video about that. I definitely will at some point. But I would recommend a more moderate deficit. This way, you can still build muscle while doing this, and your training performance is not going to be that inhibited. Your overall life isn't going to be that inhibited. It's not going to be anything too difficult. You're not going to risk the chance of rebounding afterwards and gaining all that weight back because you did some super aggressive diet and suffered through it, and then you were starving afterwards, and then you just rebounded. This just mitigates the chances of that happening. So this is just the general guideline that I like to give. Somewhere around there, you can start a little bit higher when you're at a higher body fat percentage because you have more fat to lose. I could explain why and all that shit, but I don't have time. This video is going to be way too long. I need to get home soon, but just subtract about 200 to 500 calories from your maintenance, eat that, and then go from there. And we're going to talk about your macros and everything. Don't worry. That's just the general start here. Get lean first, and then start building from there. Okay? All right. Those fucking damn RSAs threw me off, man. I'm pissed. Made me sound like an idiot. I'm talking about fucking insulin sensitivity and shit. Whatever. All right, so step number 2. Now that we got lean, what are we going to do? We're going to stay lean. We're not going to bulk, and we're just going to get more jacked from here. Go watch my other 2 videos, or 3 videos on this now. I think this is my 4th video. I made a video about how to stay lean year round, how to deal with hunger, and how to actually write a workout program. I covered every single training variable you have to know, or yeah, whatever the fuck. So go watch those. I'm going to cover them, little things from each in this video still, because I want to provide the most value possible to you guys. But just go watch those if you want the full picture. You can just put them on like 2 times speed. It's not going to take that long. Do it while you walk, while you get some steps in, multitask, whatever. Yeah, fuck you. Anyways, we're not going to get fat. Like I said, we're not going to get fat. We're not going to bulk. I made that mistake way too many times. I promise you guys, you don't want to do this. You want to eat around your maintenance calories. So theoretically, you lost some weight. Your maintenance calories is more than likely going to be lower than it was when you were starting your cut before you got lean, because you're a smaller human now. Therefore, your total daily energy expenditure is going to be less, because it requires less energy to keep your body functioning, and you burn less energy when you're moving because you're a smaller human. There's also other reasons, but that's the main idea. So your maintenance calories is going to be, depending on how much fat you lost, maybe a couple hundred calories less. The only way to find this out is, again, to experiment. Maybe input your new values into the calculator and then get an estimate, and then experiment, do the same thing you did before, except I would definitely try to err on the side of caution and try to underestimate, undershoot it a little bit, just to play it safe and make sure you're not overestimating and gaining fat, which we don't want to do. So once you find this new maintenance, you want to eat around this. Like I said, you're never going to truly be able to eat at your maintenance every single day. It's always going to be fluctuating. Maybe some days you'll be in a slight deficit, some days you'll be in a slight surplus. If you really want to, because I know people are obsessed with this idea of being in a surplus, if you really wanted to, you can be in like a 50 to 100 calorie surplus. I would never go above like 200 even. Muscle growth is extremely slow. I can make a separate video about why you don't need to bulk, why you shouldn't. But basically the TLDR is that muscle growth is an extremely slow process, and people will bulk and they'll put on like 20 pounds in fucking 6 months, or they'll put on like a pound a week. That's 52 pounds in a year. You think you're putting on 52 pounds of fucking muscle tissue in a year? I promise you you're not. Even if you're on steroids, even if you're fucking brand new to the gym, you're not doing that. So get that out of your head. If let's say you've been working out for like a year or two, which is like who I'm hopefully speaking to, but regardless, you're probably building muscle maybe fucking at the very max, you're building muscle like a pound a month, which you're not doing unless you're like really a beginner realistically. But let's say you are. That's why I have here, you don't want to be gaining more than a 0.5 to 1 pound per month, realistically speaking. Again, we're human beings. There's going to be some days where you're in a surplus. You're going to maybe put on a little bit of fat, a little bit more than you wanted to. I'm a prime example of this. Over the holidays, over the past few months, I put on a little bit more fat than I wanted to for sure. I'm going to get lean in a couple weeks and it's going to be fine. But we're human beings, so I made the mistake even knowing that this isn't benefiting me. And if I had thought that bulking was the move, I would have got way more fat like I did last year and all the years prior. So thankfully, I didn't do that this year. But as somebody who's done all these different things, I can attest to the fact that eating around your maintenance is the move. Trust me. Getting lean, eating around your maintenance is the move. You're going to progress better than you would if you were bulking, if you know what you're doing. So yeah, I'm not going to talk more about that because I could talk about that for hours, and I can make another video about that, and I will. But basically, that extra energy, that surplus, doesn't really do anything for you. You don't need it. Muscle growth is extremely slow, so take it slow. Try to mitigate the amount of fat that you put on if you can, and just take it slow and you're going to be fine. The main idea, focus on getting strong in the gym. Don't focus on fucking adding pounds to your fucking scale weight. Focus on adding pounds to your lifts, because that's what actually indicates that you're growing muscle. The scale can be going up for a number of reasons, the main one being fat gain, obviously, which we don't really want. So stop chasing a number on the scale and just start getting strong in the gym, and you're going to get bigger, you're going to look better, you're not going to get fat, and you're going to be in a much better place. You'll thank me later, I promise you. Fucker, man, every time. This shit doesn't want to do it. Okay, there we go. So let's talk about what this diet should actually look like. So this is after you've gotten lean. You can follow the same macro guidelines, except the calories will just be different, obviously, when you're in the deficit, and I would advise that you do that, generally speaking. It's a lot more nuanced than that, but anyways, now that we're at our maintenance calories, we want to set our protein to about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. This is equivalent to about 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So let's say you are 180 pounds, 0.7, I believe is like 150. Let's see. Let me pull out the fucking calculator here. So if you're 180 pounds, 0.7, it should be like 0.72, I believe, if you're using like the 1.6 conversion, which is what the research usually uses. By the way, this is back to the research. I didn't just make these numbers up or just fucking regurgitate them from somebody else. I actually spent time fucking researching this shit. Anyways, 0.7 times 180, that's 126, so way lower than I thought. So yeah, you really don't need that much protein. But if your maintenance calories are relatively high, then I would generally recommend to maybe go closer to that 1 gram just to play it safe. The research shows that seems to suggest that you really only need 0.7 or 1.6 grams per kilogram to maximize muscle growth. But the 1.6 to 2.2 is just that like 95% confidence interval or whatever I think it's 95%. If you understand statistics, then you'll know what that means. I'm not explaining that, fuck you. But you're basically just playing it safe by going to the 1 gram per pound of body weight. It also just makes it a little bit easier, but don't think you have to shovel protein down and that it's like the more protein you have, the more you're going to grow. Because realistically speaking, 0.7 is more than enough. If you want to have the extra couple grams to play it safe, then that's fine. If you couldn't fucking figure it out somehow, in this example, 1 gram per pound of body weight would be 180 grams, right? So you would be eating somewhere between like 130, 180 grams of protein. Now, let's talk about fats. So fats, if it's 0.5 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, some people will use 0.3 to 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. Some people will use about 20% of your total daily calories. And when I say some people, I mean some coaches, but also the research. There's tons of different ranges and stuff. Fat is by far the most like inconclusive one in terms of what the best amount is. None of these are really conclusive besides protein definitely has the most research. Carbs does not have that much research, believe it or not, in terms of resistance training. But anyways, 0.5 to 1 grams per kilogram of body weight seems to be the best range. So in this case, if we're 180 pounds, let's see, the 180 pounds divided by 2.2, that's 81.8 kilograms. So 81.8 times 0.5 is equal to 40.9 grams of fat. This is the very low end. I would recommend only really going to the very low end when you're cutting because it's just temporary and we can make that temporary sacrifice to have fats on the lower end. But I would generally recommend it depends on your body weight, but like for me, I don't really go to like 40, like I am 180 right now. That's why I'm using that number. I'm around there. And I usually have like 50, 60, sometimes 70 grams of fat. That's like what works best for me. But in terms of like what I use with clients, what my coach uses with clients, etc., seems to be somewhere in this range of 0.5 to 1. And there is research suggesting that this is a great range. Anyways, so this would be 41 grams of fat to about, I'm retarded. I can't say that anyways. To about 81, or let's say 82 grams of fat per day. So I'm not going to talk more about that. I'm talking way too much about all these points. You guys can figure this shit out. Sorry, again, I don't fucking like script these or anything. I just fucking went off the dome. I just finished recording a bunch of videos for short form, and now I'm doing this, and then I got to go home. It's already 7 p.m. Fuck me. Anyways. All right, so we got our protein and our fat established. Now, easy part, your carbs, just fill in the rest of your calories. So ideally, you want to have a lot of carbs. Obviously, like carbs are going to fuel your performance, everything like that. In terms of numbers, there's not much research on it, like I said. But theoretically, you would want to maybe keep protein a little bit lower, keep fat a little bit lower so that you can have more carbs, especially if your calories are pretty low. Something that you can do to increase your maintenance calories is just walk more, which I definitely recommend to lose fat, to stay lean, 100%. Any phase that you're in, increase your expenditures so that you can eat more, you can have more carbs specifically, but more food overall. You're going to be in a better place. And like, there's so many reasons why that's beneficial. So try to increase your maintenance calories by walking more, moving more, etc., so that you can eat more and therefore get more carbs. But like I was saying, if your maintenance calories is pretty low, then it might be smart to err on the lower side of the fat and protein so that you can have more carbs and be fueling your training enough. But these are all things that you just have to experiment with, and there's no one right answer, one size fits all, and anybody who says that there is an idiot, so don't listen to them. But some general shit, get your fruits and veggies in, try to hit your macros. If you're getting fruits and veggies, like a wide variety, and you're eating meats and like just like a general well-balanced diet, whole foods, you're probably going to be getting a lot of your macros in. So I recommend using chronometer, however the fuck you say it. It shows you all your macros based on what you're eating. It's a free app, no affiliation, obviously. My fucking small ass, but definitely recommend that. See where you're lacking and then adjust your diet accordingly. Your macros are definitely important, so don't neglect that. That's why I put that there. But an easy way if you don't want to track or you don't want to be too meticulous about this is just get more fruits and veggies in and you're probably going to be hitting a lot of your needs. So that's what I would say about that. And then make sure you're fueling your workouts because your workout performance, how strong you feel, how energized you feel, how good you feel in the gym is going to be very much correlated to how much muscle you can actually grow. So we want to make sure that we're fueling our workouts. We're feeling good. We're not feeling sluggish. We're not feeling tired. We're not feeling mentally out of it, whatever. All these things can come back to your nutrition, the timing of your pre-workout meal, and your overall intake of energy, calories, of macros, everything. So we want to make sure that we're fueling our workouts. Again, I'm going to make a separate video about pre-workout nutrition because I'm very adamant about this. You guys know this if you follow me, because I've seen it firsthand with myself, with my clients, and just mechanistically speaking, it makes sense why it's very important. So I will talk more about that. Go watch my short form videos. I talk about that all the time. Yeah. Basically, though, I'm trying to provide as much value as I can for you guys here. So even though I really don't want to talk about this shit because I talk about it way too much, but basically, you want to get a lot of carbs before your workouts, ideally. You want to maybe have protein before your workout, depending on how close it is to it. That's what everything depends on, is how close to your workout are you eating your meal. Now, if it's your first meal of the day, I would definitely try to get some protein in, just because overnight your muscle protein synthesis levels were like down-regulated basically, and your muscle protein breakdown, which is the opposite of that, will be higher. Now, to offset that, we want to eat protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, and therefore not go into our workouts in a state of, excuse me, in a state of breakdown, and you just want to kind of kickstart that NPS. I didn't explain that well. It's a lot more complex than that, but again, I can't be bothered, guys. I can't be bothered. But you want to maybe have some protein to do that if it's your first meal, especially because you were fasting overnight. If it's not your first meal, it's not as important as long as you got some protein in beforehand. But it depends how close the workout is, because protein is going to slow down the digestion of your carbs, which is the main thing that we're focused on. We want to make sure that our blood glucose levels, our blood sugar levels are stable, and that our glycogen stores are filled up, etc. So we want to make sure that we're eating enough carbs in general. That's the most important thing, is just having enough carb intake overall. But we want to make sure that we're topping off our glycogen stores and elevating our blood sugar to prevent low blood sugar, hypoglycemia during our workout, which is going to cause negative performance. Basically, it's going to hurt your performance. So we want to avoid that by having carbs. Go watch my short form videos for a lot more specifics on that. But fuck you, I'm dead here, guys. I'm dead. Woo! Let's keep going, boys. All right. So some of the biggest mistakes to avoid when it comes to all this shit, when it comes to being skinny fat, when it comes to trying to make progress. Again, you don't have to be skinny fat for these things to work. Like, pretty much everybody is skinny fat. Like, not necessarily, but in the sense that everyone is trying to build muscle and get leaner pretty much. Obviously, some people are already lean enough, but like the majority of people are trying to get leaner and get bigger at the same time, which is why this niche is pretty awesome, and it's kind of part of why I did it. Part of why I'm targeting this niche and why I'm focusing on this. That's a whole other story. Don't worry about that. But anyways, like pretty much anybody can apply this, but you're probably not watching this if you're not skinny fat. And if you are, then whatever. You can use context clues. You can figure it out. Anyways, some of the biggest mistakes to avoid here are not sleeping and not managing stress. Believe me, as somebody who has had insomnia for their entire life, who especially recently has been getting like 5 hours of sleep a night, who might have sleep apnea and needs to figure that out, because even when I sleep good, I feel horrible, who is chronically stressed, who is fucked beyond belief in all these different aspects. I feel horrible all the time pretty much. I'm just nerfed 24/7, especially in the gym, especially recently. I would be like, not to make excuses, but genuinely, I would be in such a better place in all facets of my life if my sleep was in check. And for the people who think that sleep doesn't matter, it really does. So please get it in check. I'll make a separate video about how to actually do that. I do know how to do it. I help my clients with it a lot, and I help a lot of other people with it. I just can't really help myself that much. Whole nother story, but do not neglect this, please. It's extremely important, so please do not neglect it. Same thing with your diet. I touched on it before, but your diet is likely the reason why you're skinny fat. So we want to make sure that we're not having this crazy inconsistent diet where maybe we're struggling with binging and restricting. Maybe we binge out on the weekend. We eat fucking thousands of calories over our maintenance, and then we're scared to get fat, so then we restrict ourselves during the week and we have like 1,000 calories a day, and we just starve ourselves, and then we feel horrible during our workouts because our gut is fucked up, and because we probably slept bad, and because we are fucked up mentally, and because we are low energy, etc., etc. So we do not want to be there. We don't want to be in an inconsistent state at all. Whether or not you're binging, restricting, and you're struggling like that, maybe you're just, some people, like a lot of the guys that I know, they are just like, some days they'll be like locked in, they're like trying to lock in, they'll have like a good amount of calories, and then other days they'll eat like nothing. So they're basically in the same boat, binging, restricting, just not to the same extent. But either way, it's just that inconsistency. Maybe it's a lack of structure. Maybe it's eating your meals around different times and just kind of eating bullshit, not eating real food, just snacking, eating fast food, all this bullshit. Just have more structure. You don't have to follow some crazy bodybuilder style diet. Just have more structure, be more consistent, and you're going to be way better off, I promise you. Another mistake is changing your workouts constantly and not having a plan. Same idea as the last one, but if you're not keeping your variables consistent and you're not tracking your workouts and you're not aiming to get stronger at the same movements over time, then you're just not going to know if things are working. And there's a multitude of other reasons why that's bad. But that's the main idea, is you're just not going to know if things are working if you can't track it and you can't be objective about it. Because, like I said, muscle growth is extremely slow, and it's going to be very difficult to tell if you're building muscle just based on appearance and not based on your training performance. So we definitely want to be consistent with that, and keeping your workouts consistent, following a plan, having some structure is all going to be good, and tracking it as well. Not training hard is a very big mistake as well, like I talked about before. In order to grow muscle, we need to train close to failure, because there are both high degrees of effort, which leads to high degrees of muscle fiber activation, and most importantly, there is a high degree of mechanical tension, which is the actual stimulus for muscle growth. I shouldn't say most importantly, because without the high degree of fiber activation, then not that many fibers would actually be experiencing this mechanical tension, this stimulus, so they're equally important in that regard. But these, basically, you need to train close to failure to experience both of these things, and therefore to stimulate muscle growth. So make sure you're training hard. That's one of the biggest mistakes guys make, is just going to the gym, winging it, fucking doing a couple curls, whatever, fucking chasing a pump, not training anywhere near failure, stopping at fucking mild discomfort, and wondering whether or not making progress. Start training hard. I would recommend, if you're a beginner and you've never trained to failure, just take like all of your sets to failure pretty much. It takes time to train to build the skill of training close to failure and keeping good technique. This is a skill you have to build. So training to failure when you're a beginner allows you to build that skill earlier, for one, but it also teaches you what failure actually is, because how are you going to know how many reps you had in reserve or what failure is if you've never actually trained to failure? That should be pretty self-explanatory. So we want to make sure that we're actually pushing ourselves to failure, we're building those skills, etc. And you just don't really need to worry about the fatigue and all that shit. So just train to failure, keep it simple, train hard, don't be a bitch, and you're going to get better results. And then, like I alluded to as well, we got to train with somewhat good technique at least. Muscle growth is pretty forgiving. As long as you're training hard, you can build muscle pretty well if you have your other variables in check. So this isn't the most important thing in the world, but it is definitely important, especially if you want to get like actual good results, because your technique is going to determine what tissue, what muscles are actually being loaded and therefore stimulated to grow. And you can make it hard to standardize your, in terms of tracking. If you're changing your technique, you can't standardize that, and you can't track your progression based on that. It's a multitude of problems. So we want to train with good technique. What good technique is subjective, obviously, but just figure out how to do that shit. And if you don't know how, then hire me as a coach or something, or watch my videos, or look up videos online. I'm hesitant to say that because some of them are probably going to be wrong, or get a trainer in person. I'm hesitant to say that as well because some trainers have no clue what they're doing. But regardless, get some good technique, train hard, don't do any of these other mistakes, and you're going to be in a better place. Now, some more general training sauce. Again, go watch my full video about how to build a workout program. I go over all this shit and way more in detail, but the main idea is we want to train each muscle group twice a week. So that means you want to hit your biceps at least twice a week. You can do 3 times a week as well. I like to do twice a week personally. I like to do upper lower. That's what a lot of my clients do. I find that works best, but I've ran full body myself. I have some clients doing it as well. I have some clients doing a variation. I have some clients doing like upper lower combined with push-pull legs. I have some people just doing push-pull legs, etc. The split is not that important, but the main thing is the muscle frequency. We want to train them twice a week. I'm not going to explain why because it doesn't matter. Just trust me, please. Again, none of this shit that I say is just based on like, just trust me, bro. It's like, you guys have no idea how much time I've spent researching this shit. I'm also studying this shit in school. I'm going to get my bachelor's degree in this shit, God willing, next year. Like, and it's not like some wishy-washy shit. I thought it was going to be outdated shit, but I'm actually blown away by the program here, to be honest. It's actually really up to date. My exercise physiology professor is he very recently got his PhD, so it's very much up to date. He's an extremely smart guy. I picked his brain about a ton of stuff last semester. Great guy. But as well as my kinesiology teacher right now, he's also an extremely smart guy. They're up to date with the research and they know what they're talking about. But anyways, point is that you can trust me. Hopefully you guys trust me by now if you're watching this video. Hopefully I've built that authority a little bit. I'm on my way to continue doing that. I'm not an expert by any means, but anyways, I don't know why I'm trying to establish credibility at this late in the video, but regardless, you want to train each muscle twice a week. Go watch my video, the other video, to learn why. And then just general recommendations here in terms of volume. It's very much different for everybody. That's why I put a range, and because the research is inconsistent and anecdotes are inconsistent, but this seems to be the general range that works best. So it's anywhere between 2 to 10 sets per muscle per week. This is based on how many times you're actually hitting each muscle. So let's say you're doing 3 times a week. Let's say it's full body, whatever it is. That would look like hitting 1 to 3 sets per muscle per workout. So let's say you're doing full body, like I said. Now, for biceps specifically, let's say, just because it's the easy example, whatever. You would either do like 1 set each workout. So that would be 3 total sets. Yes, you can grow with that 100%. You could even grow with 1 set twice a week. But bare minimum really you would want would be like 1 set 3 times a week. You can get away with potentially doing 3 sets 3 times a week and therefore getting about 9 sets total. Some people will find that this is hard to recover from. Different muscle groups are going to recover differently based on so many different things: fiber type, proportions, voluntary activation levels, fucking the position you're training the muscle in, if it's a lengthened position, if it's shortened position, the rep ranges you're using, everything like that, a million factors. So that's why a range is necessary, not just a specific number. And it's very much inter-individual, so you just have to experiment and see what works best for you. I recommend starting on the lower end just to avoid accumulating too much fatigue and having to deload potentially. Just start lower, and that way, if you're starting low and you see that maybe you're not progressing at the rate that you want to, you can likely be sure that it's not a recovery problem, and therefore it's probably a stimulus problem or a patience problem. Therefore, you can just add a set and see if that improves your rate of progression, and then you can just keep spinning or keep running that fucking process over and over until you find, rinse and repeat. That's what I was thinking of. Rinse and repeat that process until you find the best amount of volume for you that allows you to progress the fastest. Now, if we're doing twice a week, if it's upper lower, 2 to 5 sets per muscle per workout. So that could look like 4 sets total. If you're doing 2 sets of biceps twice a week, that's 4 sets total. That's what I do for most muscle groups. Anywhere between 2 to 3 sets twice a week. So it's like 4 to 6 sets on average. These aren't magic numbers, but they seem to work best for me and my clients. And my coach, who's very well respected and works with a lot more people than I do and has a lot more experience than I do. So if you don't believe me or you don't trust me, then you can trust him, hopefully. Also backed by some of the research. The research on volume is a little bit fucked. Don't have time to explain that, but train close to failure, like I said. That's the most important thing. Get stronger in the gym. Don't force progression. Don't force getting stronger, because getting stronger isn't the stimulus for muscle growth. It's actually the feedback that tells us if we are growing muscle or not. And potentially neural adaptations that can lead to strength gain. It's not just muscle growth, but basically, if you've been doing the same movements for weeks on end, then you've likely made those neural adaptations already, the adaptations that happen in the brain. So the rest of the adaptations that are leading to increases in strength expression are likely happening at the peripheral level, at the muscle level. So you can indicate that getting strong in the gym means you're growing muscle, you're doing something right. So that's what you want to focus on. You want to focus on training close to failure, getting strong in the gym, keeping good technique, following a plan, tracking your workouts, adjusting one variable at a time, rinsing, repeating, and just running that into the fucking ground until you're happy with your progress, basically. Go watch the video again for the full breakdown of all that shit. But all that said, patience, my friend, patience. Like I said, muscle growth is a slow process. Getting lean can be a slow process if you were at a very high body fat percentage to start with and you weren't going too aggressive with your diet, which could be valid in some cases, like I said. So you just got to be patient. If you're doing all these things that I talked about and you're kind of like doing everything right, so to speak, in that sense, then it's just a patience thing at the end of the day. Now, there's almost always things that we can do better. We can be more consistent. We can do whatever. We can train smarter, etc. But the main thing is just going to be consistency and patience. That's what really builds physiques at the end of the day. Like, these little details don't matter that much. Like, the magnitude of the effect doesn't matter that much at the end of the day. I wish it did. I wish it was like work harder and be smarter and have the best program ever and you're going to get the best results. But it doesn't really work out like that, unfortunately. If it did, then I would be a lot better than I am now. And so would probably all of you and a lot of people. But you just got to be patient. If you're putting in the work, you're doing all these things that I said, you're being consistent, then you shouldn't be doubting yourself. You shouldn't be doubting that you are doing things wrong. You just need to be more patient. Obviously, there's some caveats to that. Like, if you're not making progress, then you're doing something wrong. But then again, how do you quantify how quickly that progress is coming and like what's normal, etc.? It's just complex. But you got to be patient. Do these things that I said. Be patient. And you're going to go from skinny fat to jacked and lean probably. I believe, hopefully I covered everything. I wasn't sure what exactly to cover in this video. I drafted this shit like last night, I'm not going to lie, after lab. Or maybe it was before lab, but I've been very busy. I'm about to have spring break, so hopefully I'm going to have some time to kind of chill out a little bit, maybe spend a bit more time on content, even though I have a ton of schoolwork and other work to do. and general business work, etc. But hopefully this was helpful. If there's any questions you guys have, please feel free to ask. You can comment them in my Instagram videos, my TikTok videos, these videos. One of my favorite things to do in the world is fucking answer questions. I don't know why. There's just something about like feeling like I know what I'm talking about and feeling like I'm being able to help people. I just love that shit. That's why I love coaching. That's why I do that shit. Which, speaking of, if you're interested in that, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'll see if we can work together. If maybe I can help you out. I'm gonna build an application soon just to make it a little bit easier. Sometimes the conversations can be like a lot of back and forth, but it doesn't matter. You guys don't need to worry about that. If you want to work with me though, you're tired of spinning your wheels, maybe this stuff doesn't make sense to you, or you don't want to worry about it all, or you just want to make sure that you're doing everything you can, or you want to do whatever the fuck, like a million other things. I could pitch you on my coaching for hours, but I don't need to. If you want to work with me, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to help you out. I want to take on more guys all the time pretty much, so shoot me a DM and I'll help you out. But like, comment, subscribe, please support the channel. I'm going to try to keep pumping these out pretty much every week, maybe every other week. I really appreciate all the support. If you actually made it all the way through, you're the fucking goat. Again, drop any questions. Let me know what you want to see next. And yeah, man, I'm going to talk to you guys fucking shortly, I think. I'm going to go home because it's fucking 7:30 and I got to go drive home. I got to go get on the fucking merit. Yeah, I'll catch you guys. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Fuck you. Peace.